Just different.
Yo, peace and black power. It's your brother Knowledge Born Alive. Do the Knowledge Radio. The place where knowledge is born.
Knowledge Radio.
This is 3K.
Think Tank.
This is 3K.
Hey.
This is 3K.
I swear that knowledge is on. It's where I swear that knowledge is on. It's where I swear that knowledge is on. It's where I swear that knowledge is on. Who ran, who ducked, who drew down, return fire. We're the warriors, the healers, enlighten us. I'm tired of the same old, that game old with an upgrade. I'm a sunbathed in the sun rays while my guns blazing, they complain. Devil, my level not attainable. My metal, not malleable. I'm a man, didn't need that manual. Reparations is incalculable. Yeah, we wanted in blood, dead in the begging, head in the beheading, metal to the meddling. Members is aggressive, getting to the Armageddon. Karma, seem calmer when it comes to retribution. Caliber, catalyst in my clips, and I use them on traitors and haters and the ones that spread confusion. Cause the devil's playground wasn't built for our amusement. Hey, meet me at the guard hour. Hey, in these strange days, you gon' need a strong counter. Spin like Beyblade. Impenetrable armor, Orient aura. This story, this saga get gory before it get calmer. Keep holding that revolutionary posture. 85 gon' dip and dodger, but when they get monster, they turn into MC like earrings and become door knockers. I'm irate, they pirate the culture, send them to Davy Jones' locker. It's okay. Let them think that you lost it. Be patient, this type of thing you can't force it. Play possum, but nah, not know about the road. And they can't comprehend cause the language is coded. We plan ideas and we plan explosives. Make your pockets go from more bits or more bread. The portal done open, they can't close it. You ain't got a sideline, you can cause more risk. No set birth date, no Dorian Gray portraits. It's about to get ugly and these devils can't forfeit ancestral memories, so no, I won't forget. What we building is an impenetrable fortress for sure. Every show is just like a course ship, and my flow for sure tighter than your gal's corset. It's okay. We are the source, you can't outsource it. Even Spartans don't want no parts, Neff. What do you know? Before you know it, 3,000 wild Africans at your doorstep. Hey, meet me at the guard hour. Hey, in these strange days, you gon' need a strong counter. Spin like Beyblade. No, we will not cower while the rest they play safe. We will move with God's power. This is not for play. Honor my ancestors, play the Orient day. Peace to you, loved ones, stay dangerous and stay safe. AKAs and AKs coming to make their caves cave. Wreck the race like take case, stay dangerous and stay safe.
Right, Brother Craftsman. Welcome to another episode of Do Knowledge Radio. Please for Knowledge is Born. This is your host, Knowledge Born Alive. We're thankful to the Most High that we have a blessing here with us today. We got over 3 decades of hip-hop history encapsulated and surrounded by a zeal and a passion for telling the correct story, even if it was often at the wrong time. So we are celebrating the fearlessness and the boldness. When God gives you something, you have a duty and an obligation to act on it. So one who was fearless enough, one who was bold enough, one who paid the dues and took the sacrifices that come along with walking in your purpose in a divine space. So for me, this is our modern day Gordon Parks, our modern day Oscar Brown Jr., our modern day Gil Noble, encapsulated in a form and space where truth tellers, truth revealers, and true livers can take us by the hand and walk us through those treacherous alleyways and trains that folks was clutching they purses and crossing the other side of the street and afraid to ride in the middle of the night. and give us the sights and the sounds and the real. So it becomes my honor and privilege at this time to introduce the son and present to others. Uh, One who shaped us and helped us see the light and the clarity and the love that's in this art form and culture that the world loves nowadays, that they said wouldn't last a decade. My brother, the orator, the pen man in the building, our brother, Bonz Malone. Welcome to the platform, my brother.
Thanks for having me, bro. I appreciate it very much.
Definitely, definitely, definitely. I got so many things I wanted to get into you, get into you with you. So I just wanted to say thank you because oftentimes we saw many of those that they call leaders, I would say organizational representatives, meet their demise for telling the truth. And in that space, many folks is like, man, no, you see what happened to homie? Nah, I'm good. You see what happened to homegirl? Nah, I'm good. You understand what I'm saying? Like, so in that space, I just wanted to give you love and respect due for continuing to be a truth teller, whether it's comfortable or uncomfortable.
Yeah, appreciate that. That's I was raised, to honor the truth, to really respect truth, and I believe that the best writing is just telling the truth. If you have the courage to do that, then it's the best read there is. There's so many times that a lot of us would say, honestly, that the best things that we've ever read is this. It's just life. Life lessons and stuff like that is even better than fiction. And it's most things that we've seen, especially from the level that we've come from the streets up, unbelievable, unbelievable. You have to literally be there. To anybody who was actually there could read something that was written from that level and be like, this is authentic. This is authentic. This is what people in Hollywood get paid to do. And we do it so much better because we lived it. We actually lived it. So we don't have to use too much of our, imagination. If anything, it's just, if it's fiction, then we change the ending. You know, we make it the way that it should have ended. But um, for the most part, it's like, based on a true story is that's every day for us, man. So um, yeah, I was raised to honor the truth. Um, my parents are Jehovah's Witnesses. They refer to um, the Bible as the way it is as truth. I was raised to respect the truth, and later on, I was able to make my own decision to embrace the truth. And I'm glad because it fits the person that I didn't even know that I was becoming anyway, you know? And so it wasn't too much of a stretch now. It's like this is the core, and I feel like it, at least in certain areas, society has caught up to the value. Not most of it, and then that's never going to be the case. But those chosen few, that still value it, that haven't given up on the good in life, they still value what truth is and honesty even more now.
Agreed. Agreed. So you got a little bit of my writing slash reading background. You see what I'm
Yeah.
saying? So how does it begin for you? Does it begin with writing stories, telling stories, or how does your writing journey, begin?
My writing journey began in, bombing trains, New York, graffiti, number one subculture. It's the introduction to the street for a lot of us. And it's not just hip hop culture. It's a part of several cultures, from as far back as hieroglyphics, Egypt, the Underground Railroad. There was signs would stay at this house, written on, carved on trees. We know all of that. LA gang culture, marking turf and territory. We got the same thing here in New York, Philly. Different urban cities see that. So graffiti has always been referred to as the number one element for that reason, because it goes further back than as far back as music and tribal drums, especially the beats. But it's the first thing you see. It's the identifier that something's going on here. So that's what drew me in when I was in junior high school. Everybody um, loved art. Everybody comes up from school just painting or drawing or something, just to figure out that you don't got no talent at all. But at the very least, we're all doing it. And then that small group, depending on what school you go to, and that small group, it could be the big or small. They're budding graffiti writers, and I was one of that small group to start it off. And so the appreciation for writing started from there.
I just seen the scene from the Warriors.
Yeah, exactly.
In my head, like I literally.
Yeah. I like that.
The scene,
I like that kid. He didn't talk too much, but he was up though.
Right.
He was up.
He was on point. I remember the guy said he was like, "Light it up." I wanted to know we were here.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I'm saying?
Exactly. And let me just add that.
Because he was laid back, he was able to see the plot unfold, and it saved their life a couple of times. She's like, "Hey, these chicks is packing." So yeah,
classic.
Yeah, that was a beautiful thing. So the sights and the sounds of New York, and then New York events create hip hop. The blackout, things like that. You see what I'm saying? So,
yeah.
How much of these things did you take into when you begin to write on the paper versus bombing everywhere that you could bomb?
Well, I think that like everything else or many things in life, that becomes as big as popular culture itself in society. It's organic, and you got to look back at it to actually identify what happened. That's when the names hip hop comes in and all of that. It's always after the fact, because you can't identify what it is and name it when it happens. Because you don't know what it is. That's what being organic is all about. And so you got to look back and look at it. And with that, for example, looking back at 1977, the blackout in New York City, 72 hours of nothing but chaos in 5 boroughs, happened when the city was broke. The city economically was finished. The Empire State City, the greatest city on earth, was selling Sanka instant coffee for $5. Something this big, $5. People were losing it, and however way it happened, the lights went out. I believe it was the summertime, so that just makes sense that people was using so much energy. And I remember the interesting thing after the chaos and all the violence, the death, and everything, which is inevitable when something like that happens with millions of people living in a city that has 400 and some change miles of subway in it, where you can't even access it now because they got no power. When the lights came back on, I noticed that the music that was being played in the street, that for me, the electric cord that used to run from the park by the monkey bars, and that industrial cord used to go up the wall into the first floor apartment, that wasn't happening no more. It was coming from the lamppost now. Now people were like, "Nah, the lights are back on. I'm not paying for nothing. We ain't paying for nothing." And all of a sudden, people who knew how to hotwire cars and you know quasi electricians and all of that, man, they started just coming out the woodwork, and jams just started popping up everywhere in the streets. Now it's not your crib. It wasn't just a community center. This was your block. This was the park. This, we ain't paying for nothing. And maybe that was happening. Herc and other people could say, man, we've been do that, but I didn't notice it until then. I mean, I was still about like this high, so really anything eye level I was able to see, and that was eye level when I saw the cord go up into somebody's crib. But when it came down to that, nah, it didn't happen anymore. So that was the first. Those were the first things that I saw about hip hop culture, and from there we started to become our own now. The fashion, the way the 5%ers had a heavy influence on just what cool was always was always about. That in our community, you had to be really somebody to carry a radio. Let me tell you that. And if you had a radio, we knew you had something else under that coat with you. There's just, I don't care if you were by yourself. I used to call them ghetto superheroes. That's where the reference came from, because even cops showed them respect, because you just couldn't have a boom box or anything like that. By the time we got to the early 80s, you couldn't have something like that without carrying or the equivalent to a gun. And in on the street, the equivalent to that is a large reputation, a serious reputation for laying it down, getting it in with no nonsense at all. And it was only the older cats that did that. So I was one of the young guys who, especially as an only child, looking at that and always wondering to myself, it's like, look, I could either be tough, I could, follow the examples of being a pimp out here, a thief, whatever the hood has to offer, or I could really study to be cool and find out what that's all about, because I got to find some kind of advantage, because I'm not going to be able to beat everybody out here. These guys got decades of experience more than I do. They too skilled in violence already. And I don't got no brothers and no sisters. I better become real savvy about this. And hip hop was the lane for anybody like me, male, female, who got brothers and sisters like yourself, and that really love music, who love art, at least had an interest in it, that could develop into something else. This was the lane. This was the lane right here, because not everybody go carry no radio. I'll tell you that. Not in New York, man. If you don't get stuck by somebody with a shotgun, the cops might tax you. So it was all out you had to have something on these streets, man. It's you had people that were out there to get paid, and you had cops who got paid to be out there in the street. So you know, you had everybody was out there to get something.
So now moving into making this decision to write. Before we get to 88, because 88 becomes the culminating factor, what's like that decade between like 78 to 88 that leads up to this moment where you begin writing professionally?
It was learning 78 to 88. Oh my goodness. You're the first person who ever took those numbers and encapsulated that decade to ask about that decade in particular. 78 to 88. Let me just start by saying Good Times was 79. Bounce Rock Skate, I think, was 78. It or both of them was 79. So you're talking from the decade started great, man. That's it. I'm just watching the Brunswick spinning around. I'm watching Atlantic spinning around on turntables for people who alive and dead was some of the greatest DJs I've ever seen, ever known. Dudes who, you know, were blind that could cut like you wouldn't believe. Shout out to the original Backspin. Just unbelievable brothers. And that decade just exploded. Now, of course, I've always said that hip hop is the remix of disco. And disco records is how Flash came up. Well, I would say, once I said on Facebook that Flash was the first superstar DJ, I'd like to correct that now because I've thought about it and there was one sister who challenged that and I respect her a lot. I thought about it. He's the first true celebrity DJ. And, I will put him between celebrity DJ and even superstar because you had other celebrity DJs too. But Flash, even before he was Grandmaster Flash, as DJ Flash was bad, man. I mean, from his own story, people were looking at him it's like they couldn't believe it. You're standing there listening to it and you still couldn't believe it because you never heard that before. And, you know, him being a part at that precise moment in the decade, breaking all the records that he did. I can't even list them. My man Dynamite, he's really good at running them down, but it's at least 50. The only person that broke more records, he said, was Bam Bada. You know that, the king of records, because Bam had more imports. But as far as, here in New York City and in the country, Flash was it. So that decade, you start off with Good Times 79. You going into 81, jeez, 82, Wild Style, Style Wars, which blew my mind. We had that was about graffiti documentary. Style Wars was just unbelievable, especially with the huge. You got Star Wars and you got Style Wars. Did really Star? Oh man, we were all there. Yeah, back and forth. It was such an underground reference. Only the writers really knew about what that was. And I started writing graffiti in 81. So, to hear like Style Wars and Wild Style, that You know, what is wild style? That was a very underground thing, and then the movie comes out, transforms everybody. You know, now everybody sees the possibility of, first of all, it brought to us an understanding, you know, a visual understanding, a visual example of what hip hop should be. Okay, you know, I would say it what hip hop is, but we didn't know. So many of us didn't know, but we saw what it should be, what it could be, and at that particular moment, what it is, and it grew from there. The rest, like they say, is history. But going to 88, you had so much, it was everything. That those years right there, 82 is when 82 and 83 is when the remix of disco was over and hip hop was putting out wax. Hip hop is putting out wax. Now it's, you could still use the you know the disco records underneath, but now there are labels that are popping up: Sugar Hill, Enjoy, P Long Records. You had different joints. It's like everybody was putting out something just to cut a record. You know, in Brooklyn, Funky Slice. Everybody who knows about, you know, Funky Slice in Brooklyn, with Biz and on Fulton and, you know, Albee Square Mall. It's places like that, you know, Music Factory. Everybody was going to get records because now, you know, it wasn't remixed anymore. Now it was an original production. As far as, here's the MCs, here's the tapes now are on wax. So we had the clothing, the sheepskin, Jew Man up in the Bronx. You got graffiti. Dudes go bombing. I remember one of the greatest moments that when I when I felt like I really hit the number. I knew that this was my calling and a way of life. I was invited to a house party out in Richmond Hill in Queens. And one of the neighborhood graffiti writers, graffiti artists, he wasn't just a writer, came in, my man Desire from Nation of Creation. That was the name of the crew. He comes in. You see little Spanish kid, good looking kid too. Girls loved him. Comes in. He's covered with graffiti. He's covered in paint and all of that. He comes in. He has a hoodie on. He takes the hoodie off. He got this low hoodie. He goes right behind the turntable with paint and all, paint all on the hoodie. And without any hesitation, he probably just come through the crowd. He just daps a couple of people up, hugs a couple of people, goes straight behind the turntables, and just starts going off. I'm like, yo, this is it. This is it. You could tell he smelled like the subway. My man didn't eat nothing, drink nothing, just dapped them up. Place full of girls, pumping, and throws on All the Noise beatbox. This is 84. 84. Killing right over there. And just bringing it back. AJ Scratch. Shout out to TR Nation, DJ Flasher, you know, up in the Bronx, Pre-Sweet, Gilly B. Oh man, they cut up AJ. I heard a practice tape, or one of their practice tape was cutting up AJ Scratch where the part when they go, damn, damn, damn. He kept bringing that back. Lost my mind, boy. You wanted to be on the beach up in Far Rockaway with your big box and just you know, just entertaining the whole neighborhood with that. Just such classic years, because it wasn't just the music and the MCs that were coming into their own, but it was, you know, one person in particular who ran with Kool Herc's idea, his paradigm, his party, and made made an organization out of hip hop, to organize hip hop culture, and that was Africa Bambaataa. Straight up, if Kool Herc is the chairman of the board, then Africa Bambaataa is the Jimmy Hoffa of hip hop. Let me tell you, because the Zulu Nation were the Teamsters, nigga, with the Teamsters. There's no question about that. You can't cancel his culture, even if you don't like him. Regardless, you don't have to like what he did, but recognize, that was an essential act from him, because to organize the culture, Herc couldn't do that. He's not that type of person. He's not that type of personality back then. Bambaataa was. He certainly was. He was a traveler, and he was able to get the word out. And the truth be told, he left the gangs to do that. So that's really, significant, because you ain't have too many examples like that, back then. And I just had to reference that from the 70s, because it really became visual and a solid impression and results in the 80s to get to even 88. If he didn't do that, that's like what other people say, oh, this won't last a week. It won't last, any 10 years. It's still going now, because the groundwork that happened between 78 and 88, prior to that, truthfully, with the OGs, but between 78 and 88, like the question, you could see the indelible impression that hip hop is made. If you go outside of the country, you go anywhere in this world, everybody is still dressing like Run DMC, man. They are dressing like Run DMC forever. There'll always be a tracksuit, Adidas, a gold chain, and there will always be a Bermuda Kango. Period, with some Kazals. If you ain't got the Kazals, you a sucker. You're incomplete, because you're afraid of getting them taken. That's why you don't have it on. But the look is not complete until you have the Kazals, and that is 78 to 88. Real talk. I still remember the first time I heard Sucker MCs, I knew it was over. One of the greatest, I'm telling you, quote me, born, one of the 5 greatest beats in hip hop ever made, Sucker MCs, bro. From Action, from Orange Crush, one of the greatest joints right there. So, I mean, you know me. I could just keep on going.
Hey, look, I'm here for it. You understand? I'm here for it, because I won't get it again. You see what I'm saying? I won't get it again. So I'm like, whatever I can extrapolate now. You see what I'm saying? Like, yeah, I want to get it from
So
you.
let me add this one last piece. New York City at that particular time was a mobile art gallery. The transit system, the MTA, was a mobile art gallery. New York City government owes us money for bringing and making tourism number one through graffiti. Them trains was crack. That off the bat, you had everybody from Germany, China, Japan, Sweden. I mean, through the whole European belt, coming, taking pictures. The first time I ever saw a video camera with somebody that was taking mobile photos of just burners, man, we were killing the trains, bro. We were killing the trains. We were stealing paint and killing the trains. But I mean, they're the masters of the art. Are right now have put their families through college because of the groundwork that was done in the 80s. Some of us got shot, stabbed, some almost electrocuted, and now every one of my friends' kids, all of them have graduated college. None of them been in jail. Not one.
In my head, I'm still envisioning him and LL rhyme on Crush Groove. You know what I'm saying? Like, so, you know, seeing Crush Groove for me and seeing the Fat Boys in a movie that wasn't rap related, him and Curtis Blow freestyle because he said he never wrote a rap. You know what I'm saying? Like these are all elements for me as a young child that was very impressionable
Yeah.
from that era. Seeing a transition, and I want to ask you about it from LL to Rakim. You know, musically, because I heard you say it starts with the beat first. You see what I'm
Yeah.
saying? So it starts with the beat first, and then when we begin to listen to what the MC was saying, what the rapper was saying, and then having to go read or research or study what the rapper was saying. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I just wanted to ask your thoughts, you know, in that time, in that same decade, because then you name things evolving in regards to the sights and the sounds of the city. I could smell it. I could smell the piss. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah,
Like,
definitely.
so, you know, hearing that and then bringing, you know, us written work and then things like even creating them before the world even seen them. What was that like for you um, beginning that journalistic type of push to hear not only what the beats were saying, but what the rhymes were saying?
It was it was a perfect blend. You know, the hip hop as a culture starts with the beats. That's why New York had the greatest DJs. Like DJing here is literally a vocation. Um, but the industry is started by the MC. The industry is the MC. That's why, you know, it's the music business, not the hip hop business. The music industry, not the hip hop industry. It ain't no hip hop industry, it's a culture. The MC built the industry. It changed the business into an industry, and Russell Simmons had a huge part of that. Huge part of that. Nobody on that camp. I started journalistically at Rush, RAL, straight out of high school. Um, Bill Adler came to my high school. He said, you know, you could make money writing bios. He saw one of the I had a column in the high school newspaper NYC called Streetalk, and I was phonetically spelling stuff. My man was illiterate; he couldn't read, so I wrote it, you know, in graffiti so that he could at least want to read it. And they thought it was a gimmick. I was like, nah, that's my man right there. I'm writing about us, like, you know, we're ghetto superheroes. And Bill saw that, and he introduced me to Leor and Russell, and then, you know, the rest is history. So here I am writing bios. The first bio I ever wrote was The Great Adventures of Slick Rick. I mean, his first album, and me and Rick hit it off instantly. Man, listen, I'm making $1,600 a week writing biographies for every one of Russell Simmons' artists. I'm straight out of high school. I'm like, man, a week that's 72,000 a year. I'm, I'm chilling with Slick Rick, and you know, when I hear LL Cool J, what's different between LL and Run DMC and even Curtis Blow is that LL is on Def Jam. You know, T La Rock was the first person on Def Jam. We all know that. But I Need a Beat, you know, is about T La Rock leaving the DAT in there. And LL King, he was booked next, probably Chung King, because how long they go back with Russell Simmons. So the rest is history. You say, I need a beat. Crush Groove just blew him up. But the thing about it is that he was so young and so ready. He was sexy. He was marketable. Young guy. He's from out of Queens. With the camp, he was just the right dude at the right time. Even if he skipped the line, the dude he had what it took to be the you know to do what T La Rock would have done, and even more because of the energy that he had. And his marketing capability was through the roof. It was more than Run. And I don't, at that particular time, Run was the greatest MC on the planet. But Run never took his shirt off and wouldn't take his shirt off. This kid comes and takes his shirt off right off the bat. It was like, what? Okay. All the girls passed out. They're screaming, I need love. Bing, bing, bing. Who did that? What do you mean I need love? What was that? Some sucker rap? Nah, this ain't no sucker rap. You saw that dude take off his shirt? This nigga's brolic. He talk about I need love? Yo, he wins. Then he comes back with some raw joint. Then you want battle? Yo, he's versatile. He's all over the place. Nah, he was the right. And he had the Bermuda Kango. Had the same look that Run DMC and Rush Associated labels indelified with everybody throughout the world. And he followed suit in that. He didn't try to take it somewhere else. Beastie Boys came in, didn't try to take it somewhere else. They kept Adidas. I know LL used Troop and stuff like that, but he followed suit, and his own marketability was a platform unto itself. He did things that nobody else could have done, and he represented the youth, young girls, all urban girls, which is a hell of an impact. Run DMC, they represented every race, face, and place that love hip hop and rock music. That crossover. I know Leo hated that. He hated that. He never wanted Rock Box to be done. And I was like, nigga, Rock Box is the second greatest beat. You know what I'm saying? It's like, come on. Man, I that's just unbelievable. But, to get to the point of Rakim, who is one of the nicest, lyrically and a really charming, respectful, respectable person. I love him dearly, and we a deep affection for that brother right there. Rakim showed the world that you could really make money doing this. He's the first person to ever on his album cover have not like, yo, we count money up, dude, we getting paid. Now, whether that's all rap money or not, I'm not getting into any of that. Shout out to Eric B. You know what I'm saying? But let me tell you, Myrtle Avenue really put, hip hop on the map and rap on the map in a big way, seriously, because that's when, the whole Dapper Dan era, you got, man, that just blew everybody's mind. Paid in Full, bro, changed the game. I think by that time, you knew, even though DJing and hip hop started with the beats, and it's always going to be the beats. The industry was made right there. Yo, the MC is God. That that right there, and it takes me back to the images that you know I saw when I was young in like '79, like we were just talking about the '81. I remember going to those jams in the park where you just hook up the equipment from the lamppost, and what was on the needle, 5 cents. A nickel was on the needle, and I always thought, like, you know what? That's for the 5%er. That's the way the DJ is giving props to the 5%er MC, because the MC is gonna grab the mic, talk about sun, moon, and star, and what just some celestial lights and blow the mind. It's like, shout out to the Supreme Team, Just a Law, the superstar. Um, uh Man, C Divine, the mastermind. Shout out to the Supreme Team out of Asbury Park, New Jersey. One of the greatest radio shows, hip hop radio shows ever. But that was just an example. So when with Rakim, it just took me back. Was like, here we go again. Here's a 5% of Big Daddy Kane. Here's 5%, and I love Kane too. Kane was just the other side of Brooklyn. Kane was he was the smooth operator for real. I mean, you could just
sounds so
him
smooth.
coming in, just doing that pop.
Yeah.
But right, here's Rakim. Like, right, the difference with Rakim, even though Kane was a speed rapper too, speed battle rapper. When Rakim did Follow the Leader, man, that was this. I straight into the Milky Way, worlds out of sight, as far as I could see. Not even the satellite. Yo, that's it. I was like, yo, this guy's the best, and just deep hip hop appreciation. I'm still smiling. It's decades later. Still smiling. Haven't heard that song in a long time, but it's in the heart. It's in the heart. And when I saw that album cover where you had it was a perfect album cover. Shout out to Fourth and Broadway. What a legacy. My man, Cookie Gonzalez, one of the best dudes I ever worked with. One of the best friends I ever had. Learned so much from that guy, and we did so many things together. I could only imagine his life, the day he heard Paid in Full for the first time, and that was the same place that I brought Mobb Deep to years later. And that album cover said it all. It's like, we got this. We got that. It was different from any other album cover, even Slick Rick with the Adventures and Champagne and this joint here, Paid in Full. That was it. It was like, we running. The streets is running the music business. I was like, yo, this is great.
Gotta be. Yeah, it was life changing for me. Life changing for me to hear it. To hear it, and then hear the extended version on the record. My brother was a DJ, so whatever I heard before I could afford to buy anything, I heard it from him.
Yeah.
That was the relationship. Like I was saying with my mother, like my mother gave him access to music, and he was, he still is right now, one of the illest DJs ever. You see what I'm saying? Yeah. When I saw Juice, and I saw GQ, I said, yo, they stole this from my brother, yo. You understand? Like, they owe my brother a check, yo. You see what I'm saying? Like he was one who was young, taught himself how to play the piano at like 4. We had a master pianist come in and classically train him in the piano. He went to Catholic school. He went to North Boys Chorus. He was in Japan by 10 years old from school. So so I always joke with him. I said, "Yo, you was in Japan before the Wu-Tang." You see what I'm saying? Like, yo, you right. You see what I'm saying? So like, he was a young kid, like 14, 15 years old, DJing and rocking the party.
Yeah.
They were sneaking them into clubs and all that. You understand what I'm saying? Grown people were sneaking them into the spot, the DJ. You know what I'm saying? Like, so it was always,
Life, man.
this another way outside of books was music was a through line of a connection in the house. You see what I'm saying? So the first time I seen a coffin and techniques and you see what I'm saying? Like he literally invested all of his time, his energy, his money, everything that he could possibly do into his equipment and into mastering his craft. You see what I'm saying? So that was his story. I think the first rap, because I wanted to be a rapper for 20 whole seconds, not even a minute, like 20 whole seconds, was between Coogee Rap DJ Polo on the Run instrumental or in Straight Up Minutes instrumental. So I had like 10 seconds. I was like, and I wrote a rap and I was like, all right, I'm cool. You see what I'm saying? Everybody else. I'll leave it to the professionals. But between those, those two time frames was something. But Rakim and Kane and G Rap and Master Ace and hearing those spaces for me was, pivotal. I think the first rap music joint that I bought with my own money was the Fat Boys. You see what I'm saying? I'm sure that's the first thing I bought with my own money. I don't know if it was the real tape or not. You understand what I'm saying? I bought it though. You see what I'm saying? With my own money. So, these were all, for me those culminating moments as a young person, you see what I'm saying, coming up, where hearing these things kind of, put it together because, Jersey, we got house, we got club music, you see what I'm saying? So all of these other joints all together in there, so you'll get some hip hop. I remember seeing Redman DJ, you see what I'm saying? Like before rapping, like seeing them DJ. You see what I'm saying? So it's like all of these spots. My brother was with Flavor Unit. You know what I'm saying? Like as the DJ, like he was signed to Flavor Unit. You know what I'm saying? So there were, Latifah and all of these other background, parts in regards to that. You see what I'm saying? So it's just a lot in the music space. You see what I'm saying? For me, putting it together and being able to articulate it, writing later on, and things like that, and giving honor and credence to the story because the attraction for me, whether it was movies, whether it was music, was the story within the story. The fold out in a tape cassette to get it to read who the artist think. You see what I'm saying? Me like that, like from the tape to the CD. You see what I'm saying? Having that moment of looking like, all right, this was my little chance to see what they had going on, and trying to watch the movies, trying to get the behind the scenes, Word Up magazine, or anything that I could possibly get my hands on to try to have some insight into the story. Otherwise, it was just my imagination and my inference. So from my imagination to my inference, I didn't see all of the videos and all that. You see what I'm saying? The videos were in my head listening to the song. So wherever the song took me, wherever the lyrics, they were picturesque. They took me to a place. And then oftentimes when I see the video, I was like, so,
Let me say this, because I forget about my own history a lot of times, because I still love and still appreciate what we have done, what we have been a part of. The reason why a lot of the artists and I clicked is because I came from the street. So I understood the things that they were saying without them having to say it. coming from New York, even something like, good morning, or like have a nice day, or how you doing, could be that could be a fight. So you really careful about what you ask, and you learn to be observant and to pick up on things, so you don't have to ask and rub somebody the wrong way. And since I already knew that intrinsically, they were like, yo, I like this guy because I don't have to say enough, and he's already there. They didn't have that when, with other journalists, where they came from college. They're assistant editors or things like that, and you got to break it down. And then they, some of them knew a little something, but for most of them sounded like they were asking a question to the artist and not stating a fact or making a statement, where I was just making statements and they were agreeing to the statement. Say, yo, he gets it, because we're from the same place. And because of that, it made it really easy to bond with them. If I didn't bond with them, we instantly didn't like each other. And I could write what I could write because I understood what the message was. I was always told that you're not supposed to have an idea or an opinion until after. Well, like they say, good luck with that. But you know, at least be fair. Everybody wants to be right, but it's more important to be fair. And for me, fair. You if you're fair, you're gonna be right. WRITE. You know what I'm saying? That's the way that I do it. And I wanted to have to provide a voice that was opposite Jimmy Breslin. Jimmy Breslin was, a columnist in the Daily News, one of the top that the Daily News ever had. There's a few of them, and he was one of them. Pete Hamill was another one. But Jimmy Breslin, back in the early days of New York, he dogged a lot of the ghetto. Like he talked down to black people, people in the hood. He said, it's wild, it's violence. If he used the inference that these people are animals, I I wouldn't be surprised, but I'm not saying that he did. He came very close to that. And because I was very offended by that when I was in high school, reading about that, I wrote about our culture to show that there's a flower that grows out of the concrete. I just said, look, that's how you see it because you're old. It's not even because you're white. You're old, bro. I got the fountain of youth. It's up here in the Bronx. I'm going to start writing about you get the sip the juice. Boy, all the kids got it. And that's really where people were like, it's about time. It's like, thank God that it's not just the same story all the time. And really, that's all it's ever been. Knowledge. It's always about writing about the fountain of youth. Like we hit that. We had that because we were young and down to do whatever was creative. Like I said, you had to find a lane. Cause you ain't tough enough to carry no one speaker radio, man. You and that big, 4-speaker joint with the double cassette, bro, you better have a sawed off for that. So that was nowhere near where what I was even thinking of doing, and it's like life figured me out because I was just doing, writing graffiti throughout all of this time and having such a great time going through different boroughs to write. And I'm hearing jams in different boroughs in the streets. And, it was all worth it. By the time I started working for Def Jam and RAL, before the magazines hired me because they were like, yo, we can't read what this dude wrote. Everything is phonetically spelled. Who wrote this? It was a guy named Bonz. Get him in here. We can't. All of these AEs from college can't figure out what he's talking about because it's phonetically spelled. So that's how I started writing for magazines like Spin, The Source, and of course Vibe. But you would think that leaving high school from the high school newspaper, that's where I would logically go first. Nah, I went to Def Jam first, and it was offered to do A&R, and I turned it down, and I kept writing, but ended up doing A&R later. When I was at the Source, and when we had Unsigned Hype. So that's when it really. I'm glad that I turned it down, but at the same time, it's like I turned down power, bro. So real power.
So now we're getting into my favorite decade of hip hop. And it's only my favorite decade of hip hop because I had to include Capone Noriega's album and Nori's solo album, along with everything that came out in '98. I'd have been excluding Shut Him Down. I would have been excluding As Dark as Hell Is Hot. I'd have been excluding Flesh of My Flesh, Blood of My Blood, if I would have picked my true decade. So I went from '88 to '98.
I should have known it was a trap. I knew it was a trap.
So yeah, I mean this time. So I need whatever you could give me in this time frame.
Well, let me just start by saying from 88 to 98 is so fully loaded that it would take way more time than we have, and it would take more thought to talk about it because a lot happened in that decade. We lost friends in that decade. There were serious challenges. It was one thing to talk about musically of being a gangster and an artist, but in 88 to 98, you was both. You was both. Hip hop and as a culture, rap as an industry was at an all-time high. We was sophisticated criminals. But we were the purest artists. And I'll tell you that right now. You look at that decade, you could forever put that decade up against anything that has come after it. Anything to this day. We have more classics in 10 years than in any other time in New York's hip-hop history. You got Tribe Called Quest, Cypress Hill, BDP, and the list goes on. We had a fraternity that included a sorority of dope MCs across the board, male and female killers. And nobody's album sounds the same. We sitting in on each other's exclusive recordings. You could get into a 5-star restaurant easier than to get into somebody's listening session. You crazy? And we were all there, every studio, every night. It was like a club exclusive, and nobody album sounds the same. And they're all hits after hits after hits after hits. And it's New York. Even if Cypress Hill is from LA, they did it in New York. The album is timeless. Tribe Called Quest, timeless. BDP, timeless. PE, timeless. Biggie, the list goes on. Nobody could say that. In the history of all the decades, somebody had to make some garbage somewhere. Somebody album flopped somewhere, and I'm sure it did. But the ratio of hits is stacked like a loaf of bread with nothing to drink, man. Nobody has ever achieved anything like that. So even though these kids now, I don't know what they're talking about, but they seem to like it. They're making a lot more money streaming and stuff like that. They're making more than the president. Whatever. Make as much as you can. You can't take it with you. So hopefully you do some good while you have it. But the classics that we have, you know what that built for us? Reputations. That you know what else it built for us? A future. You know what else it made for us? Better children, better fathers because of that experience, better parents because of that experience. That's word is bond. I'm telling you. The great mistake, and I've always said this, and I believe this to the heart. The great mistake from our era is that we would say to young people, "Oh, you ain't hip hop. You don't know what hip hop is," because they weren't they weren't there with us when we were doing it. That's irrelevant. That has no bearing on what they're putting out. That's it's actually offensive. They don't have no reference point to that. They never will. That's a mistake. And being an OG, I'll tell other OGs, listen, don't do that. Don't compare them to what we had and where we're from. That's a disconnect. What you do is, what I would advise is, tell them, look, the question isn't who is hip hop. The question is, what do you think hip hop should be? And that's the question to be having with the community. What it does is it keeps them in the driver's seat where they should be. It's their music, it's their culture now. Even if you don't like it, you say it's trash, whatever, it's theirs. Don't try to take the steering wheel from them because they don't know where they're going. You already had your time. You supposed to be in the passenger seat. You in the passenger OG seat. You playing Hutch, nigga. You Hutch. Tell Starsky because he's full of energy, ready to go. Tell Starsky that you know where he wants to go. He needs to go back, make a U-turn. Go here. There's a shortcut behind the billboard, and you see what I'm saying? To get to where it is that he's going, be the guide, not the reason for them to be disconnected from the hood. We still have a responsibility to give the best advice and to tell the truth. But we also have the responsibility of coming up with strategies of how to do that. And I think that that's a better way of doing it. It shows them honor and respect, and it doesn't expose our own jealousy either. You know what I'm saying? It was like, come on now, come on. Leave them in the seat and let them get there and just show them from example what has happened in the past, what PE did or Big and Cypress and OGC, all of these different groups did and what they learned from, and just leave it with them and let them figure it out. And with all of the streaming capabilities and the ways to make money now, don't get mad that they take that and they flip it in the ways, and you see their product come out and you instantly know that it's a new Rakim. It's a whole new, you gonna see a picture be like, oh my God, I never thought about that one before. It's like, bing, there you go. Word up. And then you did your job, man. You did your job. And just hope for the best that they take positive messages. I know that lyrically, the streets is always going to sell because it's always out there. But don't oversaturate the market with just one thing and not enough of the other. Take the messages from, LL, from Run and stuff like that. They made softer songs. Big said, the hardest songs are the softest beats, or like the hardest songs are the softer tunes. Like For example, anything Jay-Z, you know what I mean? Something like that where you got kid tunes and you could turn it into one of the biggest hits. It's like because you're thinking outside the box and not just trying to be so macho and try to brave and prove something, man. Just be dope. You know how hard it is to be dope now? It's hard to be dope. It's hard to stay dope. And the greatest form of flattery is not imitation. It's the greatest form of flattery is inspiration. It's inspiration. Anybody, if you want to have a whole lot of followers, teach people how to be leaders, bro. That's what it is. It ain't nothing else really matters. Teach them how to be leaders because you ain't always going to be here. It ain't about you, man. It's about the bigger picture, the community. We need more people reaching outside, of ourselves to show people the way. It's like this is how it's done because this is where the credibility lies. You stay close to that, the authenticity, that is what makes you. That makes you, and it inspires other people like you throughout the community. You know how many people that made money that leave the hood because you have to. You can't have all of that money front and doing, even if that's your lifestyle, you can't do it where you started from. That's too much of an insult to everybody else that's staying there. The only way that you could do that and to be safe is to stay at a certain level, never go beyond, never cast an image or a shadow of that's longer than the community, then that's longer than your front door right in front of you. Don't make that mistake. People got shot and killed that had tremendous potential in this industry because they didn't leave when they should have. That they put out something that was bigger than them, and they didn't let the money take them to the dream, to the representation of it. They wanted both. They wanted the hood and to be a rock star. You could get killed like that. And so, drop these messages on them. For the time that you given me, I tried to give you the very best advice, and I told you, I promised you that I'm going to give you the very best that I have because I live like this, man. I don't have to even think about it. I'm proud to live like this. I'm a minister. I ain't no rapper, but even to be a part of the community, to see success in other people makes me happy now when they are passing on the right things. When they're passing on the right things, man, we could at least say, Lord, somebody got it. Word. It's not an overall disaster. It never is. There's always something good out here that you could celebrate and be happy about. And hopefully it's somebody else and not just your own achievements, because it's not all about that.
It's 100% the reason for this platform. 7 years, 3,000 episodes and counting. Waking up with somebody else on my brain to celebrate. Looking, waiting. You see what I'm saying? Scouting out, shouting out. You know what I mean? Like, so it took me 5 years for Lord Jamar. You see what I'm saying? It took me a couple years to get to you. You see what I'm saying? So it's time well spent, but it's not, I'm not waiting in the process, just stagnant, still going, still looking to celebrate, because everybody out there has a story, and their story deserves the same grace and elegance and respect as a name. You see what I'm saying? So what attracted you to the name? I saw you ask some critical questions to writers, like, why should I read what you're writing? You see what I'm saying? Like in the short of it, I like getting interrogative, like getting introspective, like literally challenging and pushing us. Like, okay, What's this right here? What's this frame of reference? And
Yeah.
from like, I get simple sometimes. I say, you're talking about your children and your grandchildren. You see what I'm saying? Like, you're talking crazy about your children and your grandchildren. You don't like what your children and your grandchildren are doing, and you're on these spaces talking about your children and your grandchildren. Why would you want someone to respect you in that fashion? You see what I'm saying? Like, so from one generation to another, they have their own language. Our parents did not like our music. We didn't like their music. Their generation before them didn't like their music. How long are we going to do that? You see what I'm saying? But when they found a way to connect with us through the music, what my mother did was found a way to connect with us through the music. Through the music, through the books, through the arts, through the sciences, through the culture, through the research. She took the time to learn whatever language was prevalent for us to communicate. Because this is how she helped to work and heal people. You see what I'm saying? So my brother, he get on them turntables and he do that gospel house. He was still doing it back in the day. He just found a way to mix it in for all of the crowds. Whatever crowd he was in, he created a healing experience. You see what I'm saying? No matter what detriment they were facing, he found a way in that language to speak that language of the turntable to reach them, to uplift them, to heal them, to help them. And mine was communicative, whether I'm writing or speaking, whatever it is, finding a through line, finding a way, finding a story and celebrating that story, harnessing that story. These are young people. They're impressionable. You see what I'm saying? They're impressionable. And that impression can be volatile if it's not properly mastered. So that emotional regulation and things like that come in, like, you really got a ticking time bomb walking around. We just was a ticking time bomb walking around with Reggie Blunts and Cisco. You understand what I'm saying? And orange chicken and cat. You understand what I'm saying? So like there has to be a space where we can constructively analyze and find a way to put all of the stories together. It's like, okay, this was our story. This is your chapter. These are your chapters right here. You see what I'm saying? This is why I asked in decades, because in the space of the decades, we can give credence and we can begin to look at layers, because the art of the story, the storytelling from each decade is something that somebody can take away.
Yeah.
They can take away from it. They didn't have to be in 78, but you were there. So the sights and the sounds, like, oh, I didn't know about the garbage strike that led up. You see what I'm saying? Like all of these background facts that are there. So now when I'm looking at it, if I get the chance to see the Warriors or Crush Groove, or
right,
I can have that total recall experience for a time that maybe I didn't even exist. We just came off the Wu-Tang Nas New York State of Mind tour, and children went to go see them that were not born when they came out. Did it stop them from going to see them? Nah. What's the beautiful caveat? They got to see the Hulu series and hear that. And it's like, oh, I'm going to go see that. Maybe they thought they was going to go see the people from the show that was on there. Either way, there are people that are going to see and paying their money and spending their time to go see artists who they did not get a chance to experience in real time when they were young. But they're experiencing them now that they're young, and there's still a show for them to go see. They're still alive to perform. We was in LA, I saw Mary, I seen LL. You understand? I'm looking like, oh my God, I'm going crazy. You see what I'm saying? So just seeing that, and then the place is packed, sold out, and the energy is still in the crowd. So we still want a good show.
Yeah.
We still want a good show. And then traveling overseas in different places, I could remember being in a spot in Germany at 3 o'clock in the morning, 4 o'clock in the morning, tipsy, and Crisscross Jump came on. And guess what everybody in the club did? Jump. The Mac Daddy, the club, not 3 or 4 of us, the club, like it was brand new, like it came out last night. You understand what I'm saying? So that kind of welcoming environment, the elements still exist. The love for music still exists. So all of these barriers that we have in regards to languages, people who learn English that ain't no English because of music, because of hip hop. You understand things like that. So going to, they may not speak no other English other than all the rap lyrics or whatever it is for the songs. So the appreciation for the art form, the appreciation for the music, and for the sacrifice of the artist and those who are associated with it, they all are culminating. But it comes in respect to language. Language is indicative of a culture. So whatever their culture is, whatever their language is, if you take the moment to learn their language or attempt to learn it, they'll let you in.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? I ain't speak no German or no Polish, but I was fumbling over a couple of words and they like, oh yeah, come on. You see what I'm saying? Because you made an effort, you made an attempt to speak to them in their language. Not you saying like, well, how come everybody don't speak English, son? You understand what I'm saying? So these things all matter. And even with a language that's supposed to be universally understood is expressed different. So the respect factor that you have in regards to learning someone's language and connecting with them on their level, whether it's above you or below you or y'all on the same level, you made the effort, you made the attempt. And it's either accepted or rejected. But 9 times out of 10, in my experience, it's been accepted. So.
Yeah, that's what's up. Amen to that.
So I definitely I want to beseech you to see if we could get a part 2 because this 88 to 98 era, this decade, I definitely want to get the unpacking. You see what I'm saying? Because there's some things that I wanted to ask you specifically about Big and about Prodigy and things like that didn't get a chance, but I do want to respect your time. You did give us a lot of time and a lot of things to chew on. So if
I
it's
definitely we definitely do a part 2.
definitely want
And
to
give me more, think about the things that I haven't said yet. Yeah, there's so much I haven't said.
I definitely want to frame that. And thinking about being creative still after a Easy E or after a Big or a Tupac. You see what I'm saying? Like after that, right? All of those things, and then stuff like Five Mics, stuff like The Source, stuff like what I'm saying? Like there's a bunch a bunch of things that are there that come from the subsets. But I definitely would love to have you back and unpack some of those things.
I had a great time. I hope everybody else did too. And man, there's so much to be thankful about. Like, you think like my man Vinny Vella said for so many years, who's better than me? Yeah. It's like who's better than you? I always appreciated that about him. We did so many things that's so incredible, man. We'll never have that time again. The things that we've done will never be repeated again. They will never happen again. It could be more or less, but probably less. Less in quality because we had nothing to lose, nothing. And anybody who has a startup company that is built on a dream, a real heartfelt dream, knows what that feeling is when you got nothing to lose, unlimited energy. You could express it in any way you want. Look out! So you're gonna change the world, literally.
A
Yeah,
final
man.
message to young writers, young creatives out there, young folks with ambition. You know, what would you have to say to them before we go?
Um, I'd say the pen is only mightier than the sword when it's in the hands of somebody who knows how to use it. That's it.
Ladies and gentlemen, Bonz Malone. If you want to do the social thing and let people know how to get in contact with you, or and if there's something at this particular moment you want to draw their attention to.
Nah, they know I'm on Facebook. You know, just holler at me here. You know, if you want a script read, you can hit me at bonzmalone@gmail. I'll let you know what my price is, but you know, I'll help you get it right. Believe me, because you only got one chance in Hollywood, man. So you know, you want somebody who's reading your work, who understands where you're coming from, cuts down on the mistakes. So Bonz Malone at Gmail, and you know, we'll negotiate. But I wish you all well. Stay creative, keep writing, and make sure that whatever you're writing is a lot longer than whatever they put on your tombstone. You wouldn't see it anyway. So that's what's up.
Definitely thank you for your time and your love and the jewels that you shared with us today.
Man, it's been
Definitely looking forward to part 2.
Yeah, no question. It's been a pleasure. Peace, everybody.
Peace and love, y'all. We out.
Yeah. Now we gonna tell them that in front. We tell them like this, yo. I'm an African. I'm a African. I'm an African. I'm a African. Yeah, y'all like that? No more. This man's mind is open. I'm an African. I'm a African. I'm an African. I'm a. Let's get
And
back
that
to the
motive
gritty
is best developed by recognizing the common enemy.